Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the San Ramon um, Valley Unified School District Board of Education Board meeting. We want to let the public know that we're video recording today's meeting. The recording is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a link to the recording has been posted to the district's website. Introduce my board members: Vice President Ken Mintz.
Good evening.
Rachel Hurd.
Hello.
Board members Laura Bratt
Hello.
and Shelley Clark.
Hi.
I'm your president, Susanna Wardway. Before I begin our meeting, I'd like to unequivocally state forever that our board and our school district strongly condemn any racist or homophobic acts of any form. As a district, we know we have work to do in this area, and we will continue to work with our staff on consistent procedures and trainings to support needed actions when incidents occur. Okay, right now, I'd like to please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. 6.0, report of action taken in closed session. So during this evening's closed session, the board voted unanimously to direct staff to complete discussion and negotiations with all employee groups for one-time compensation of $2,500 per full-time employee in the 2021 school, and directed staff to bring all written agreements to the board for action at its regular meeting on May 18th. The board also voted to appoint Linda Rowley-Tom, Executive Director of SELPA, and Amy Caporo, Director, Special Education, effective July 1, 2021. Okay, now may I have a motion to accept the minutes of April 20th, 2021 amended?
Moved. Second.
Motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, 8.0, 8.1, acceptance of open session agenda. May I have a motion to accept tonight's open session agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Approval of consent agenda. Consent items are considered routine in nature and approved by combining them into a single vote. A member of the board, member of the public may request that a consent item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and voted separately. So I think there is a request from, let's see, Helena Authority Valley to, we're going to pull 11.6 to consideration of acceptance of projected declining enrollment assumption. We're going to move it over to 10.4 now under our agenda. Is there any other from the board?
I move approval for the amended consent agenda. I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, now board reports. 9.1. Oh, fun. Bright Lights Awards, and Christine Caney, our special needs support liaison, will present.
Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Dr. Malloy. My name is Christine Caney, and I'm the Special Needs Liaison. And on support and on behalf of the Community Advisory Committee, we would like to recognize the following nominees and winners who represent a few of the bright lights in our school district. Our Bright Lights Award recognizes staff members and community partners who go above and beyond to enrich the lives of the students we serve. Our committee received so many perceptive and thankful stories, and we are especially grateful for all of you who nominated someone. Our first award winner is certificated staff member Lori Beleza, speech and language pathologist, Live Oak Elementary School. Lori was nominated by parent Simi Carr and principal Carolyn Dobell, and this is what was said about her. Live Oak Elementary School has an amazing speech education pathologist, and one of our bright lights is Lori Beleza. She has worked at Live Oak for 11 years. Lori has a knack for making speech lessons fun, and therefore students love meeting with her. All right, our second winner is classified staff paraprofessional Valley Hockelingham, nominated by Principal Dr. Liz Lyons. Valley is a beacon who is brightly despite the challenges we faced during this year of COVID. When our special day class students came back to school in November, one of our classroom teachers was unable to return. Thankfully, Valley stepped up, took responsibility for the day-to-day instruction in person while the teacher guided her via Zoom. She calmly and gently organized the daily operations of the classroom, and she coordinated schedules, hooked students up to Zoom, facilitated small group instruction. Right, general education teacher, Sarah Weatherall, Neil Armstrong Elementary. Sarah was nominated by parent Jonathan Lee. Mrs. Weatherall demonstrates compassion and consistency with her students every day. She does whatever is needed to help her students excel. She invested personal time, plenty of attention, and so much of her soul into my child's well-being. It is now a year later that I celebrate all the progress he made this school year because of this amazing teacher. And our special day class teacher, Rhonda Taft, California High School. Nominated by parents Dorothy Kamat, Cliff, and Deborah Hart. Mrs. Taft is a beaming bright light as she engages fully with meaningful content and relationships as she teaches her students. Mrs. Taft has partnered with the Exceptional Education School rep and has created ways to support the students while remote. We know the meaning of IEP in this case would be for incredible educator perfected. Right, and the following Bright Light Award winners could not be with us tonight, so we celebrate them virtually. Our administrator is Meredith Bullock, Principal Golden View Elementary School. And she was nominated by parents and Kirsten Massa. Meredith has been so helpful, understanding, and knowledgeable about what is best for our children, especially throughout this pandemic. She has always been available for us whenever we've sought her advice. She's always taken her time and made us feel that she truly has our son's best interest. Number 6, the business and community partner is Pet Food Express, Shalyn Abreu. She was nominated by Workability Coordinator Norlyn Giles. Shalyn is the manager at Pet Food Express in San Ramon Valley. Shellen and her staff have assisted our students in learning about animals at the store for their nutritional needs, backroom operations, and customer service. Community partners like Pet Food Express give our students a chance to learn job skills needed for competitive employment. Resource specialist Mindy Castro Benavides from Doherty Valley High School. She was nominated by one of her students. Mrs. Castro really goes above and beyond for me with my IEP. She makes sure that I succeed no matter what the time of day is. She's always willing to help me. Lastly, our parent volunteer, Dr. Meg Richardson, nominated by SELPA Director, Dr. Marianne Freitas. Meg Richardson has been an asset to our Exceptional Education Committee over the past several years. She led this committee for many years. And this year, she has mentored our current and past chairwomen. Meg is a true advocate for the inclusion of all of our students and continues to work to make sure that our parents understand how to best advocate and support their children and young adults. So
Great.
thank you, Board of Trustees and Dr. Malloy, as we celebrate all of our Bright Light winners.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the winners. Now we get to 9.2, Classified School Employees Week, May 16 to 22. And Assistant Superintendent Keith Roshinsky going to help us with this one.
Thank you. Thank you, President Ordway. So as many of us are quite aware, May, in many respects, is Employee Appreciation Month. And so there are a few celebratory recognitions that we're going to be honoring this month that we would like to bring to the attention of both our Board of Education and our community. The first is Classified School Employees Week, which is going to be recognized this year between May 16th and May 22nd. There we go. So I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson. So in 1969, about 52 years ago, it was then California Governor Ronald Reagan who first acknowledged Classified School Employees Week as a means of recognizing the essential and critical role that classified employees assumed in educating students throughout the state of California. About 15 years after that, in 1984, that CSEA itself pursued its own resolution to establish a recognition week for its members. And that resolution was picked up by the California State Legislature in 1985. And one of the state senators, Mr. Bill Campbell, sponsored legislation in the form of SB 1552 to permanently codify into law the recognition of Classified School Employees Week. Education Code 45460 now recognizes the third complete week of each May as Classified School Employees Week. And that's actually new. Up to about 7 years or so ago, it was recognized in October. So we're now recognizing certificated and classified employees during the month of May. So again, Classified School Employees Week is really dedicated to recognizing the important and unique contributions that our classified employees make in creating really positive and memorable educational experiences and high levels of achievement for students throughout the state. So again, we are looking forward to honoring and thanking all of our classified employees for the essential role that they play in supporting students here throughout the San Bernardino Valley. In all 36 of our schools, we thank them, we acknowledge them, and we look forward to celebrating them. I'm going to kick it on over to the next slide, if we could, please, Logan. Thank you. And also this month, we're going to be recognizing, and this just comes, I believe, next Wednesday, California Day of the Teacher is being celebrated this year on May 12th. And just a little bit of history about that. So Day of the Teacher in California was originally patterned after a Mexican and Latin American celebration that's called El Dia del Maestro. And it was a way of celebrating and honoring teachers in Mexico and in our Latin American countries. Genesis of Day of the Teacher in California arose out of legislation in 1982 that was co-sponsored by the California Teachers Association and the then Association of Mexican American Educators. And again, that was in 1982. Since then, this is an annual event that has been aimed at honoring the instructional excellence provided by teachers in our classrooms in the public schools, community college level, and at the university level. I think we all know all too well that the role of teachers in educating students and improving schools has continually evolved and changed over the last several years. And I think we all know, we've all been in schools. What teachers do in the classroom is as much an art as it is a science. And it certainly it reflects a lot more than any individual or any set of metrics can ever really indicate. We know that the best teachers understand, adapt, and respond to their students' strengths and needs in the classroom, and that they really do a tremendous amount to reach their students at a very deep and a personal level. So again, we are looking forward to thanking and honoring our teachers for all of the great work that they do day in and day out next week during California Day of the Teacher, and for the positive and long-lasting memories and impacts that they have on the students they teach. Are there any questions about that? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And yeah, and we recognize and appreciate and thank all our certificated teachers and classified employees in our district on delivering right instruction and benefits to all of our students. Thank you. Okay, 9.4, public comment for non-agenda items. Public comment will be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. The views expressed during public comment are those of the individual speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of the board or district staff. The district believes in an inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment for its meetings for all of our community. The board respects each individual's rights to express ideas and opinions. Pursuant to applicable law and board policy, the board will not prohibit public criticism of the board. We kindly ask that when making public comment, you refrain from the use of profanity, exercise tolerance of others and their viewpoints, and exemplify model behavior. Please be mindful that district students may be watching. You are encouraged to address the board and the public in a respectful manner, such that all those observing, from children to adults, are made to feel welcome, safe, and respected. The board will not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent or excessive disruption by any individual or group shall be terminate the privilege of addressing the board. So I do have, I believe we do have several stack of public comments. So I'd like to ask Dominique Santos to come up.
So, good evening, Dr. Malloy and board members. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Dominique Santos. I have a master's degree in modern art history, theory, and criticism, and I wrote the district proposal for AP Art History. I've been teaching in this district for 14 years and am currently teaching ceramics at Doherty Valley High School, where I've been for the last 12 years. I am a product of the SRVUSD, and much of where I am today as an artist, art teacher, and art historian is due to the incredible efforts of my wonderful arts-focused 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Sheila Suanot, who worked many moons ago at Rancho Romero Elementary School. I'm here today with my colleagues to open up this dialogue with the board by saying that we are eager and excited to collaborate with you as allies in the process of constructing an equitable, well-rounded education for all our students that includes the visual arts, starting at the beginning with our elementary schools. We wish we had more time and space to share information with you, but since the last days and weeks of the school year always seem to slip through our fingers like water through our slip like water through our fingers as we finish up projects and grade books and cleaning our classrooms and AP testing and all those things, this evening seemed like the best time to begin this conversation. We are so grateful for this opportunity that is provided to us for public commentary so that we can have these sorts of conversations, and we look forward to all the wonderful work we will accomplish together for our students because of what starts here this evening. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay, next we have Stephanie Hitchcock.
Hello, board. Hello. Hello, board. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. My name is Stephanie Hitchcock, and I am a classified employee at Coyote Creek Elementary School, where I am an art instructor. I'm going to start just by reading some data, just so that everyone who's either watching or here will understand kind of what we're working with, and then I'll just briefly explain a few of my thoughts. These are the elementary sites without art instruction prior to the Montevideo, Green Valley, Tasajara Hills, Golden View, Alamo. These are the elementary sites that laid off art instructors because of COVID. Coil Run, Bella Vista, Neil Armstrong, Bollinger Canyon, Greenbrook, Sycamore, Country Club, Creekside, Rancho Romeo, Walt Disney, John Baldwin, and Monterey. These are the sites where art instructor positions are still intact, and they have a range of part-time hours or reduced hours. Twin Creeks, Hidden Hills, and Live Oak, which is shared by one person, Vista Grande, and Coyote Creek. I have had the complete pleasure and privilege of working at Coyote Creek as an art instructor for 9 years. I created the role by going to my own site council and learning fund by saying, we need more art. I have a great idea. I'm so thankful that everybody got on board. Before that, I was the PTA Art Masterpiece volunteer and docent, and a chair for that for 6 years, as well as the PTA president there for 2. Art instructor positions are classified positions. They range anywhere from 14 to 19.5 hours as part-time. They serve hundreds of students, TK through 5, at all at levels in their site. These instructors prep, level, and create curriculum for standards-based learning. State elementary art standards are not enforced or mandated by a certificated art teacher at any site. What art remains is still formally in the enrichment sphere, with best efforts to align to standards where possible. In a year where students needed a soft place to land and express themselves in a way to communicate freely and easily, 18 of the 22 elementary sites were unable to offer that cushion and bridge of hope, supporting wellness through art. The inequity of art positions across the schools expanded at a time when mindshare and collaboration was at the highest necessity. So for those of us who remained, the job-alike support system became virtually non-existent. I'm speaking to you today not only as a site art educator, but as a former parent in a district of 18 years. All three. Sorry?
Wrap up your comments.
Okay. All 3 of my children attended this district, and I know that the rigors and pressures of this and what they're under, and they deserve a well-rounded education just as PE art, just as PE music and science and other certificated specialties.
And that's 3 minutes.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to the hearts of those speaking tonight and for your joint efforts and shared focus to come to a conclusion with this.
Okay, next, and I am going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Srisha? And if that's incorrect, please,
Srisha,
thank you.
Dr. Malloy, and members of the Board of Education. I'm Srisha Radhakrishnan, art teacher at Live Oak and Hidden Hills, and a freelance artist. For the past 15 years, I have had the joy of creating art with young children, helping them find joy, artistic abilities, talents, confidence, and a connection in the process of making something new. Every child deserves art. Art is not an extracurricular activity. It is an essential core subject. As we talk about our district strategic plan, what students need to be successful in school and life, from the perspective of equity, deep learning and innovation, and social and emotional well-being, we realize that we need art for every classroom and every child. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the importance of art in elementary schools. Elementary school, by its name, should be providing basics in art education, which is further built upon in middle and high school. It is very sad to see that art as the lowest priority got the first cut. The art room is one place where students can calm down and have the freedom and space to create something new, which didn't exist before. While they are involved in the process of making art, they get in touch with their thoughts and feelings and start to see everything from different perspectives and the beauty around their world. I have had the joy of experiencing this in my teaching with these young kids. As we live in a culturally diversified society, as an art educator, I feel that art is one of the most powerful mediums to teach tolerance towards differences and cultures at a young age itself. To name a few of my lessons, students learn about Mexican culture as they experiment with metal tooling techniques. They learn about Native American culture as we make coiled clay pots. They learn about the heritage of African culture as they learn to make masks. Exploring the artwork of various countries and involving in healthy classroom art discussions gives us exposure to unfamiliar cultures. What could be a better medium than art to give that kind of exposure? I would like to conclude by saying, as art educators, we develop positive social emotional skills through art activities and lessons, which in turn help in building self-confidence, self-esteem, give sense of belonging and purpose, help students understand their strengths and weaknesses, teaches empathy, and to respect and appreciate diversity. Let's make our children powerful by giving them the gift of art education. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to voice my voice.
Next, it's Natalie Herman.
Are we leaving them on for talking? I just don't know. Okay, that makes sense. All right. At least we have a mic, right? So that you guys can hear me. Okay. My name is Natalie Herman, and I have been in this district for 4 years. I previously taught art at John Baldwin Elementary for 2 years. And, I moved from Utah, and I had always been told that California was ahead of the game and, a leader in education. And so I was so surprised to see that art was not part of, or art did not have a credentialed teacher. In my job as an instructional aide, I was doing all of the prep, the planning, and all of the teaching. I had previously been a classroom teacher, and I had taught science and PE, and so I knew how to compare the amount of work that I was doing to what the other regular ed teachers and special ed teachers, not special ed, but specialty teachers were doing, and it was the same amount of work, and so it felt incredibly unfair as to be labeled as an instructional aide when I was, doing the heavy duty of the work. And what kept me going in the job was the joy of the students. My husband came in one day when I was doing painting with TKers. And I was just out of breath going from one thing, cleaning paper, to doing this. And he was literally, his jaw dropped. He was like, wow. And, just for him to see a little bit of my work. And I said, I love it. I love it. The kids love it. They come in here and they're so zen when they're painting. And it's, they need this. Students more than ever need these hands-on experiences, especially right now, while they're on screens all day. They're craving this and they need it. Art is crucial for so many reasons. As Srisha was saying, students need to be offered these real-life experiences. And where they're not, as I said, on their screens. They need to be offered opportunities to paint and use their hands and create and craft. Um, Art offers opportunities for critical thinking and allows students to express themselves creatively, to connect with others. It's, art is so beneficial for all students, but especially for those students that have that one area where they excel in. A lot of students don't love the other subjects of school. They don't love math, they don't love reading, they don't love writing, but they love art. They know that in art, there's no wrong way of doing something. And these students need those skills that are learned through art to give them confidence and to allow them to achieve their highest potential.
Wrap up your comments.
Yes, Gary Rakowski, real quick, author of Creative Focus in the Age of Distraction, said, "Long ago, we learned to think by using our hands, not the other way around." Thank you.
Next, we have Nancy Isles. Oh, sorry, is that Eiler?
Good evening, Dr. Board of Education members. Hello, first of all, I want to thank you for your service and dedication to helping support our students and families. I appreciate all your efforts, especially in finding creative solutions during this past difficult year. I want to emphasize creative solutions because I do believe you were creative and definitely thought outside the box to help solve some of our district's most challenging problems that faced us. So with the spirit of creative solutions, I want to make sure that our students are equipped with those critical thinking skills as well. My name is Nancy Eiler, and I'm an art teacher at Doherty Valley High School. I am currently teaching computer graphic arts 1 and 2. I am also a proud mother of 4 children that graduated from San Ramon Valley High School. I know this building very well. I've been working in this district for the last 10 years, and prior to that, taught elementary and middle school art on and off for the last 30 years out of state. 10 years ago, my family left our home state of Ohio to move to California for my husband's job. Prior to making the move, I can still remember excitedly looking at the San Ramon website on my computer back in Ohio. I remember telling all my friends and family how excited I was to be moving to such a large school district and how confident I was in getting employed as an art teacher. Surely I would be able to find an art teaching job in a district that has over 22 elementary schools, 8 middle schools, and 4 high schools. Little did I know that the 22 elementary schools employed art teachers as classified employees. Some were run by parent volunteers, and none of them received funding from the district. Little did I know that the district does not require an elementary art teacher to have a degree in art education or a teaching credential. I had to say I was in shock and disbelief when hearing this news. I was so sad because all my 45 years of living outside of California, living in 4 different states and overseas as well, there were credentialed art teachers at all schools and at all levels. I felt like I knew this big secret, and unfortunately our elementary parents and students didn't know what they were missing. The joy, social, emotional benefits, thinking, improved academics across the board are undeniable advantages the arts bring. In terms of brain development, it's proven. The younger and more consistent students' exposure to the arts, the better for their long-term development. Upon my arrival to San Ramon Valley Unified School District and enrolling our 4 children in our schools here, my husband and I started asking questions. I've been asking this question for 10 years. How did we here? When did this happen? Why did this happen? And most importantly, why is this still happening? After a decade of working in this district, we're working with my colleagues and my involvements with the parent and stakeholder community, I'm starting to see some answers. And I'm looking forward to being a part of the solution, as I'm sure so are you. We have a wonderfully dedicated team of educators ready to help serve this mission. Thank you for listening. We'll be continuing with this most important conversation.
Next, Aaron Parsons.
Hello, good evening. I'm Karen Parsons. I'm a teacher at Cal High, and I'm also oh, sorry. Okay, got better. Okay. I'm here tonight to support my colleagues and speak as a parent regarding art education in our elementary schools. For those of you that are aware, and last that I was informed, we do not have art offered at 80% of our elementary schools. I have twins in our TK program. My daughter Olivia loves art. Inventor and a creative thinker. Just the other day, she was inventing an egg cracker to prevent eggshells from getting into her cookie dough. She drew all the parts and the gears and was able to explain her thoughts clearly. There was not a day that goes by where she is not creating or drawing. This brings her joy, and she thrives the most when she is able to express herself through art. My son is on the spectrum. He has a really hard time communicating and expressing how he feels. He loves to draw and draws what he loves, Spider-Man and the Ben 10 Elmer shares. DJ is able to draw from observation. Someone might ask why nurturing that skill would be important. Art enhances his motor skills and teaches him to show what he is unable to otherwise express. While in the act of creating, kids are faced with multiple decisions. Some decisions are pretty bland. What colors to choose, what mediums to use, etc. Some are a little bit more profound. How do I start this project? Where do I start? How long is a given project take? All these questions nurtures a student's ability to problem solve. Not only does learning creative ways and to think and problem solve at an early age help become better students, art helps with social and emotional learning. We must invest in all our students' needs. They will need art more than ever after returning to school next year. I was a student at San Ramon Valley Unified School District in the 80s when California was adding art. San Ramon Unified was able to still provide it. I thrived and loved my art classes. This drove my decision to become an art teacher and dedicate my career to help drive the creativity that is the bedrock of our local economy. Thank you.
And can I have Sahithi Uduru up, please?
Hello. Hello. My name is Sahithi Uduru. I'm a senior at Doherty Valley High School, and I'll be attending California College of the Arts in the fall. I want to talk to you a little bit about my relationship with art. When I was in elementary school, I was a bad student. I say bad in air quotes because people like the members of the board, I was a bad student. I didn't understand math, I was behind in reading, and I flunked all my spelling tests. But I still tried so hard, and it wasn't enough. When I was in 3rd grade, just 8 years old, I told my teacher, I'm not good at anything. I feel like I'm just stupid. I said this when I was 8, but it wasn't true. I was good at something, at art. Whenever we had our monthly art classes, I always received compliments from my teachers and classmates. But despite that, none of it made me feel better about myself because kids are very perceptive. We hear adults we hear adults talk, what they care about, what they don't, and we get the message. You don't think art is important. So why would we think art is important? There are a lot of kids like me who are really good students. They're creative, pathetic, and critical thinkers. And all of that shows itself best when they can do art. Our district doesn't place value on art as a core subject. It's just included as an extra, which in elementary school, which I feel like an accessory for enrichment, rather than something that's core and essential to children. For a child that finds refuge in art, it makes them feel underserved and unimportant. You're not helping them by throwing them into the deep end in secondary school. You're just going to stamp out all the individuality in kids who manage to swim, and everybody else is going to sink. Prioritize the arts in elementary school. Those of us looking back as high schoolers will thank you for it.
And next is Anna Ahuba. I think I pronounced that.
Hello. Okay. My name is Sienna, and I'm a senior at Doherty School, and I'm currently enrolled in the advanced ceramics class. Look, as an elementary school student, I hadn't yet felt the pressures to do well academically or socially, and for that, I'm very grateful. But once I did get to high school, I did start to feel the pressure to do well academically. My anxiety started to get worse, and I was having a hard time both in and out of school. And it was very important to me to have an art class that I could look forward to in the day. And while I know I'm not 100%, I can say that I'm here today because of art. I actually don't think I would have been enrolled in my current ceramic class had it not been for the introductory to ceramics in my elementary school. my mindset without that introduction would have been to pick the easiest art class, Sienna, get the grade, focus on the next class, because that's what I had been conditioned to think. But what changed me and prevented me from having that mentality was this is my first ceramic piece that I made in 3rd grade. And I remember I felt so proud to be able to hold something, look at it, and say, I made that. This is mine. I made it. And this piece is what helped me continue ceramics as a high school student. And now, is what I'm making. There's definitely a difference in the craftsmanship between the two pieces, but nonetheless, I get to look at both of them and see parts of myself in both pieces. Now, something I'd like to point out is that I actually won't be majoring in art when I go to university. I know I'll definitely find an art studio near whatever college I attend, but I think it's important to highlight that art might not be the main pathway or career that everyone decides to choose. But the reason to have art programs in all grades, especially the early ones, isn't just to help those artists who will be living out of it. It'll help anyone who's exposed to it, and it just brings color to life and channels creativity in whatever form you decide to uptake. So with that, thank you for listening, and I'll let you listen to our other student speaker.
Okay, next we have Shotha.
Hi, my name is Akshatha, and I'm a senior at Doherty Valley High School. I don't speak up often. I've struggled with an anxiety disorder for most of my childhood, which made it really hard for me to communicate. Standing here is one of my biggest fears, but I'm doing it anyway because life is about standing up for what's right, and tonight I have something to say. When I was 15, I wrote a short story which is very close to my heart. It was about the impact that art had on my life. The last sentence of the story was this: without the pictures and the poems, nothing. This story is special to me because it wasn't just a story, it was me. Every time an artist creates something, they are really just creating themselves by taking a piece of who they are and putting it into their creation. This is not figurative speech, this is simply the truth. I believe that all children deserve an education that involves the arts. If a child does not have access to an art class, then the system has failed that child and is actively depriving them of everything that makes them who they are. I know that this is true because art makes up everything that I am. All forms of art are fundamental to the health and happiness of human beings. And if you don't believe that, if you don't think that every child needs art, then at least believe me when I say that I do. My grandmother is the best artist that I know. She spent most of her childhood drawing and painting and filling entire sketchbooks. But she lived in a community that did not believe in art, and eventually she gave up on her dreams and became a lawyer. The day that she stopped drawing was the first time she died, and in the summer of 2019, she became sick and I watched her die for the second time. I sometimes wonder what my grandmother's life would have been like if the people around her had supported her dreams. She might have studied art in college, she might have worked in a studio, she might have taught it to other people. There's nothing that I can do to reach back into time and change what happened, but I know one thing, that what we do now can shape the future, because the way that we raise kids today is what the world is going to be like tomorrow. And I know that a song or a painting or a poem isn't going to cure humanity of all its ignorance, but maybe it can reach just a few people, and maybe those people can reach a few more. When I graduate high school month, I am probably going to forget most of the math problems and the science homework and the history lessons that I learned, and I'm going to remember my art class and my art teacher, and the friends that I made and the pictures that I drew. Thank you.
Next we have Kelsey Wengel. And I think congratulations, right, Kelsey, that you recently were recognized as art teacher.
Good evening, Dr. Malloy and members of the Board of Education. Good evening, community stakeholders. My name is Kelsey Wengel. I've been teaching visual art and SRVUSD for the past 14 years, and have served as the district art lead for the last 6. This district raised me through my K-12 schooling. I now hold my master's degree in art education, and I also teach at the college level. I'm proud to be representing our district as the California State nominee for the National Education Association Award for Teaching Excellence. Tonight, our staff and students have shared some facts with you about the importance of and future of arts education in our district. I hope this sets the stage for us working together to develop a plan of action. Since March of 2020, 12 of our 14 elementary art staff have been laid off. Some have been dutifully serving their sites for over 20 years. After 14 months of unemployment, they still don't know if they have jobs to return to in the fall. As the stakeholder engagement forum comes to a close and our school year ends, this is a call to action for all of our arts advocates and stakeholders to ensure that our schools open in the fall not only with these lost positions regained, but also with secure funding to support them. We must also ensure that the sites previously without an art instructor, due to the lack of parent donations, are provided a position. All 22 sites need an art instructor this fall. These instructors need a secure budget to work from so they can fulfill their job requirements and expectations. The are a state required subject, and they are part of the academic framework of this district. They are not extracurricular, nor should they be considered enrichment. They are as necessary as every other subject. As a governing board and a community, we must clearly understand the status quo for funding arts education is not equitable across our schools, and it has not been for nearly 40 years. To let these jobs and programs rely on paddle pledges at school fundraising events creates a culture of haves and have-nots in our own district, and it is unacceptable. It's our students' right to be provided an equitable, accessible arts education from the beginning of their schooling onward. The current state of affairs is dire. I'm encouraged to hear that the board's consideration of using COVID relief allocations to temporarily mend some of our lost programs and positions, though the root of the problem is still at stake. We must secure regular funding for these teachers and programs. I've prepared a binder of resources supporting the strategic plan and citing data, research, and evidence in the ways of which the arts support each of these 3 goals. I hope you take the time to review these materials prior to our next meeting. As a learning community,
Kelsey, please wrap up your comments.
we look forward to the positive steps we will all take to fully fund with equity a quality arts education for all students in our schools.
And our last card for 9.4 public comment is Helen of Doherty Valley.
Hello, Board of Trustees. I have a few items. I don't know if I can get to all of them, but I will try. The first one is it possible that when the Board of Trustees are being named at the beginning of the meetings that you can please raise your hand, because it's really difficult for people who don't know you to know who you are because you're all masked. So when you're speaking, we really don't know which one is speaking. So please raise your hand. It would really help the public. Thank you. Secondly, I wasn't planning on this, but after I heard all the art teachers, I want to show my support. I was a teacher who taught 2nd grade and 3rd grade, and I want to say that it was my most blessed experience because I was taught by my mentor teachers to teach art. Prior to that, my training was very academic, and I grew up in an Asian country where art is taught very differently. And I also noticed that a lot of Asian parents, they would now spend money to go to Asian-owned art after-school schools, and sometimes you find teachers fixing art for students. So those arts are like cheater arts, and that's my own experience. So if you want to call me a racist, I can, you can judge me however you want, but that's my experience because I'm also a parent. I've spent money for my children to learn art outside of school, and it's not the same. Some teachers, they want to impress parents so much, they would actually fix students' arts. But in public schools, the teachers are honest. They just want the students to express themselves. Now, these days, though, As a parent, I would object to politically motivated art. However, I'm really supportive of art that is for skills. For example, students need to understand how color wheels work. I didn't learn about color wheel until I'm an adult, believe it or not. I never knew blue and yellow makes green. What an insight. It opened up my entire world. Wow, I didn't know I can create colors. Perspectives, which is missing in Asian art, but it is so such a mastery in Western civilization. Perspective, it's also science. If you know perspective, you can be a much better engineer. And if you know your colors, you know how to create lights. Now this one in Taiwan, I know they actively teach light because light is very important for the next, generation of engineers. We don't teach that. My son was able
please wrap
to,
up your comments.
okay, have the blessing to learn some lights in Taiwanese museum when we were on a vacation there. So I really hope that we will bless these art teachers because I know they can bless our students as long as it's not taught
And that's 3 minutes,
politically
Helen.
motivated.
Thank you.
So much.
Okay, we're moving on to 9.5, Association President's Report. Okay, Tammy Belluccio.
I think I got it. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Good evening. I'm Tammy Castelluccio. I'm the president of CSEA. This week is also School Nutrition Employees Week. And on Friday, May 7th is School Lunch Hero Day. District staff, board members, sites, and community, please take the time to show your appreciation for our child nutrition heroes who've been serving our community since day one of the pandemic. I know we all don't like this word any longer, but these employees have pivoted more than any other staff in our district. Their jobs have changed drastically since the beginning of the pandemic. Not only has it become more labor intensive, but they are serving more students than ever before, and they still do it with a smile on their faces. We have roughly 101 employees working in child nutrition in the warehouse, and they have served approximately 1.6 million meals since March 16th of 2020. They have handed out 60,000 USDA food boxes to our families in the community, weighing 30 pounds each, for a total of roughly 900 tons of food just in food boxes alone. To say that these employees are physically exhausted is an understatement. We are extremely proud and thankful for these employees. Please give them a thank you this week. As Keith stated earlier, Classified Employees Week is being held May 16th through the 22nd. Please take the time to thank all of your classified employees that work in our district. We have approximately 1,000 CSEA classified employees that work with students every day in the district. We have proven that we are essential in this district. Please show love to all classified employees for the work that they do supporting our students. I am honored to be an essential part of this district and honored to be the president of a little over 1,000 classified employees. And we're planning a event for our employees that week. We salute you all. We are looking forward to hear the district present on the plan to use the money that we have received during the pandemic. $3.4 million is the latest installment. I would like to let everyone know that the funding from ABSB 86, 10% of those funds our district will receive need to be allocated specifically to paraeducators. We have already discussing the plans for those funds with management. We have not finalized it, and we'll hear some plans from the district. There are a few ways the funds can be used. We can invest the money on returning employees that are currently on the reemployment list. We do not have to lay off paraeducators or instructional assistants for this year. We can add additional hours as well as hire new paraeducators. I realize the district's presentation makes it clear that these are one-time, and it will be difficult for the district to sustain any additional programs. CSEA understands the district budget situation, but we also need to do what is best for students. As you heard from some of the art teacher students this evening, the positions that they are speaking of are classified instructional assistants teaching art in our elementary schools. We all know how important the arts is for younger students' development and social emotional health. We are glad to hear and see that the district's presentation includes bringing those employees back is a priority not only with this money, but through the strategic plan the district is embarking on. Right now, the way these positions are funded is from external donations, which could get cut every year because when the site donations aren't there or the priority of the site changes, then those positions are laid off. Last year, we had the most layoffs. Roughly 150 employees were affected by layoffs. This year, the number is very small, and we're happy about that. Returning those employees should be our first priority. Also remind everyone that the 10% does not need to be used just for this coming year only. Since the salaries of classified employees are minimal, as well as most of these positions don't receive benefits, the cost should not be a lot. We will be getting real figures from the district when we sit down to make final decisions. We need to think outside the box. Our students need more support and in the future more than ever before. And we're looking forward to our collaboration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tammy. And then Ann?
Good evening, trustees, Dr. Malloy, cabinet members, to our brothers and sisters in CSE and SEIU, to our community members, our students, and to Serbia. I'm Katzberg, and I'm the proud president of the San Ramon Valley Education Association, representing our teachers, nurses, teacher psychologists, counselors, social workers, and speech language pathologists in our schools. So there's so much to celebrate. We've heard so many great things this evening already. Bright stars and the community coming together to honor them. Assistant Superintendent Rajinski spoke to us tonight about the fact that we have the National Week of the Teacher, and then next week is the Day of the Teacher for California. We also have the celebration following that with our classified work week of celebration. Thank you, Mr. Malloy, for acknowledging our educators' recent communication. So I'm entering into my very last month of working in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District, a district that I have devoted over 22 years of my life to. And I'm ending my 36-year career as a teacher. I know that my work here is not done. I became a teacher because I completely and I fully love children. I taught preschool through 9th grade and my kindergarten students where I knew that it was essential for every single child that entered into the classroom to become hooked on learning. I became in my union because I understood how important it is to speak out on behalf of our students. There are systemic problems that have existed for years. As elected officials, it is paramount that progress happen. I know that equity is at the forefront of what we must do to ensure every single one of our students has access to a wonderful education in the SRVUSD school district. As you work on this district plan, our members of Serbia want to make sure that we are united and that we include everyone. Partnership is a verb. And through that action, we deliver the best for our students. We have a fantastic handbook that is on our district website outlining action steps on how to respond to hate crimes and hate speech. Because, and I'm quoting from the handbook, it is essential for all sites to share a common definition of hate and a common response for the appropriate level of severity to be used when responding to an incident of hate. In the beginning of this handbook is the following mission statement for SRVUSD mission for equity. SRVUSD is committed to nurturing and educating the whole student. Our equity leaders strive to interrupt any inequitable practice in school culture and curriculum and eliminate barriers to personal and academic success. Further, we establish each place of learning as an institution that validates and celebrates each student as an individual and as part of a larger human family. In a recent Facebook post, Trustee Bratt acknowledged our students gathered together in a rally saying, and I'm quoting, "So many strong students against hate this afternoon at the youth-led anti-Asian hate crime rally. Our students have learned. And now it is time for all of us to unite and address the hate that we witness in our schools. A couple of days ago, I received a news alert, and once again, the SRVUSD made the news due to stickers that were pasted on our high school campus evoking hate, but invoking action from all of us to call attention to the continuation of this hatred that plagues our schools. As we emerge from the pandemic this past year and we continue to be confronted with hatred, it is time to follow the guidance of our handbook, and it is time for so much more. Survey members are sharing with me that the time for progress is now. Our members have reached a tipping point, and like our students, they too feel discrimination, a lack of representation, and feel unwelcome in our schools. Each year, as we sit in our LCAP meeting analyzing the data, we highlight the needs of our students of color, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and our students with special needs. We apply the exact same practices on attracting and retaining a very diverse workforce, yet we fail at our goals. We cannot continue to apply the same practices and expect different results. Servius Ethnic Minority Director Jennifer Schuin, Laura Finkel, our Vice President, and I met with our district's Equity Director, Ashley Gutierrez, and we shared the following demands that we believe are necessary to shift the culture in our district, creating a welcoming, inclusive school district for all. Number one, let's assess where our district is currently standing related to having a staff which reflects closely the diversity of our community. This can be best accomplished by hiring a third-party equity organization to perform an audit. Number two, establish an exit interview system, particularly when ethnic minorities are leaving our district, and make that summary report public. Number three, demonstrate transparency in our district data in the interviews of ethnic minority candidates for all positions and subsequent acceptance rate of those candidates. 4, develop new interview questions that prioritize diversity and inclusion. 5, for every administration position that is posted, the district would be required to interview at least one ethnic minority candidate. 6, have ethnic minority interviewers serving on the interview panel and attending the recruiting. 7, establish and publicize timelines to achieve management minority ratios reflecting our student ethnicity data. 8, make the new ethnic studies course curriculum a graduation requirement. 9, require a world language for every student to enhance their cultural competency. 10, mandate the K-5 social justice curriculum for all students in our elementary schools. 11, establish an ethnic minority leadership development program that is facilitated by our own leaders in the district who identify as an ethnic minority. And last, number 12, provide that all ethnic minority related trainings delivered to both the management team and to the teaching staff be inclusive of ethnic minority trainers. We know that when we enter back into our classroom, we must confront the systemic racism that exists in our schools. Equity should start with education. Teachers of color must be supported, and students should feel like they belong. It is a known fact that if you see success in the form of a great teacher or administrator who looks like you are more likely successful. We will build back our schools, and we must build back better. We can lift each other up as we celebrate this week, the Day of the Teacher. It is our duty, our responsibility to stand up for all educators, spread our unity, and build a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a public comment on this item. Helen of Doherty Valley on 9.5.
Hello, Superintendent and Board of Trustees. I'm an immigrant parent and an immigrant employee, immigrant teacher. I came to this country in 1983. If there was any systemic racism, I did not experience until recently. And I believe the president just demonstrated what is systemic racism. Never in my life have I thought people should be hired how they look. I am an Asian from Taiwan. If you go ahead and adopt what she just suggested, you would be hiring an Indian, a Black, a communist Chinese, but I will have to look up to them and think, oh yeah, there is no racism in this country, although none of them represent me. Communist China sends jet planes to threaten Taiwan every day. If my child was going to tell you,
Mr.
or an art teacher
Excuse me,
in
Helen.
his school,
Excuse
that
me, Helen.
he feels bad.
You're off topic. The topic is
I'm not
related
off
to
topic.
our
If
off
he
topic.
feels bad that he cannot go to visit his grandparents,
Ms. Chern, I'm
because
going
of
to warn you
pandemic
again.
that came from communist China, then you will tell my student
This is
that
my
he's a
third warning.
racist.
I'm going to please ask
Just
you
like
to
right here
complete
telling
your
me to
sentence.
shut up because I cannot talk it. This is systemic racism. This is what it is. I also
Please
want
turn
to
off the mic.
stress that currently California superintendent is a Black man. He is
To our action items tonight. Okay, 10.1, consider adoption of resolution number 67/20-21, elimination and or reduction of classified position. And Mr. Rojan? Yes.
Thank you, President Ordway. So as the board is pretty well aware, each spring the district and its school sites examine the staffing and services that are provided by classified employees. We look at and projected future enrollment at each school site, and we assess general funds as well as what we call external funds. And basically, external funds are basically donated funds that are generated through Education Foundation, through PTAs, etc. And we look at those funds and their availability to sustain positions beyond the current school year. We also consider those elements of district and school site goals. And we make determinations to assess where and to what extent classified staffing adjustments may be needed for the pending and upcoming school year. So when we complete that process, we work with the schools to determine where reductions may be needed when reductions are warranted. We meet and confer with our classified union. It's specifically CSEA, who typically represents the positions that are affected by this work. And after we complete negotiations on the impacts of reductions that are being considered, we pull together a resolution and ask the Board of Education to consider that resolution, to take action on that resolution. And that provides authority to my office to basically provide initial notifications of either position layoffs or reductions in hours that will become effective for the upcoming school year. So Resolution 67, which is presented to you as the first action item this evening, again, it is presented to you for your consideration and action. And if approved by the board, it will provide an authorization to my office to eliminate or reduce the specific classified services and positions that are included in the resolution. Upon the board's approval, we provide initial notification of layoff to impacted employees. And that, incidentally, I want you to be aware, is a 60-day advance notice, during which time, if funds are identified to maintain or restore those positions, then rescissions of those initial notifications are provided. And within that 60-day period of time, if funds aren't identified to maintain those positions, then those reductions or layoffs go into effect, as of which in effect would be the beginning of the 21. So we are presenting this resolution to you this evening for your consideration and action as it's presented. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a public comment on this, but I think if there's any clarifying questions for Keith, do that first. And actually, I have one. How many positions are we looking at for this coming?
So you'll see it's a total of about 7.18 FTE, and I will tell you that this includes a combination of positions where we currently have employees working, as well as positions that we have had open and unfilled in position control this year. So we use this as an opportunity to some extent to kind of clean up, if you will, position control, where services were once thought to be needed, but were never filled and were not needed for the year and aren't considered needed for the next year. So, boy, I'm looking at you, Tammy, here. Do you have that number right off the top of your head? I honestly don't. Well, no. I know it's 7.18 full-time equivalent positions, but I understood the question to be that it's in the neighborhood 20 to 25. But I'm sorry, I don't have that data in front of me. We go through, when we work with CSEA, President Ordway, we actually take a look at each individual position that the school has reached out to us and said they want some type of change in.
Right.
And we discuss every single one of the positions, the reason or rationale for it, whether it's lack of work available, like if a school is losing enrollment and there's perhaps less of a need for instructional assistant or instructional support because of the lesser enrollment, then that's kind of a reason that we would identify would be lack of work. Okay, where monies are falling short and schools haven't been able to generate monies to support or sustain positions moving forward, then the reason that we cite is lack of funds, either lack of work or lack of funds.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, then we'll go to our public comment. Helen of Doherty Valley.
Thank you. I would like to speak to this item because I don't want us to be punishing hardworking teachers. I understand we don't have money to hire them, but please think of ways to keep their jobs because they have worked so hard through this vital weapon. I know you're going to shut me up, so I'm not going to go there, but you know what I'm talking about. They're not the one that is the cause of this pandemic. Why should they be punished? We just raised substitute teacher pay. I would like for you guys to give any layoffs with ample notice and give these teacher options to have priority to become our district substitute teachers. I also would like you to please offer them, if there is any like subject teachers, if they can stack teaching, which means perhaps they can take different days teaching or take different times teaching, morning, afternoon. Just do your best. But I do realize that we don't have the money, and therefore we shouldn't spend money on administrative cost. I object to spending more money hiring outside consultants, which cost a ton of money. I'd rather that money be spent on our teachers. Work their behinds off. Thank you.
So, yeah, any comments? Any other?
Just if I could, just a quick point of
Yes.
clarification.
Sure.
So I want to make it very clear that the positions that are listed on the resolution are classified, i.e. non-certificated positions.
Right.
Okay, those are the only
Right.
services that are listed here.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yes. This is only for classified aides. Yeah. if there's any comment, I'm very, I mean, this is kind of, yeah, kind of a sad thing for me. Only it's tough because I was one of these classified, employees, these art teacher who actually got one of these, I guess, pink slips every just about every year. And luckily, I was usually, I was usually rehired by the time school started. But so I do understand the challenge, and but we do have to, if we don't have the funds, we do have to let our classified employees know within a certain amount of time so that they can you know look for other things or other plans or whatever. So with that, can I have
President
Malloy?
Ordway, if I could just add one point, and if you'll indulge me just a moment. Part of our challenge is that we need to bring these things to you in specific agenda topics. And so we do need your vote on this particular issue. Please note that we will be asking your direction shortly that will also impact this as well. So I'm just offering that in case some of our public aren't aware of the entire package, that we are going to continue this discussion a little further, and it will have an impact on this decision as we continue to do our work. It's not the work that's been completed yet. You've heard from our president. I wanted to emphasize that point. So thank you for allowing me to kind of get into the other topic just for a moment, so that as well.
So Matt, now that gave me another question in my mind. How is this, since we need a vote on this one, on the resolution, how is this going to be affected depending on what's coming? And I know the order, right? This has to be done first, but I mean, what is the connection?
So we need your vote and your approval to move forward because there are all kinds of requirements that Keith can explain. But then we also will be looking for your direction to do more creative work to try to mitigate it. That wouldn't be something you would be approving tonight. We are asking for your approval to focus in another agenda item so that we can do the important collaborative work that's necessary. Keith, if you could offer any other thoughts to it.
I think that you stated that beautifully, Dr. Malloy, and I was going to mention something similar when we got to that item later in the agenda. So, and that's part of the reason why I pointed out to the board when I introduced this item, that what would happen upon the board's approval of this resolution is that initial notifications of either the elimination of a position or the reduction of a position from where it exists now to some smaller FTE for next year would be provided to impacted employees. But based upon the item that we're going to be addressing, a couple of items down the agenda, and what direction the board gives us with regards to that, and what work we complete after tonight's meeting and after the tonight's board direction with respect to that item, will likely impact some of the positions that we have here. Because as Tammy stated earlier, and as we're aware, SB and AB 86 require that certain amounts of dollars be dedicated to either the hiring or restoration or augmenting paraprofessional positions. Not all of the positions listed on here are paraprofessional positions, but there are some that definitely are, and that could be, these reductions that we have listed here could be mitigated or perhaps even reversed as a result of the board's direction tonight and where we go based upon that direction in the coming days.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Can I move adoption of resolution 67, 2021, elimination and or reduction of classified positions?
I'll second.
Sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
The motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Clark. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. 10.2, consideration of acceptance of the independent financial audit for the 2019-2020 fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. And Mr. Medici.
Thank you, President Ordway. Our newest partner, Terry Montgomery, sends the following information to the board in terms of comment tonight. Ide Bailey LLP recently completed the annual audits of the district bonds and joint powers authorities reports for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2020. The audit opinion was unmodified, which is a clean opinion, with no adjustments proposed or findings noted. We wish to thank all of those involved in providing information for the audit for their prompt and courteous replies to our inquiry. Otherwise, the full audit is posted to our board website and has also been submitted to various California and federal authorities. So we ask the boards for the board's acceptance.
And you said it's posted on the website so the public can see this audit. Okay.
Correct.
And board clarifying question? No for the audit. Then I have Helen speaking on 10.2.
Hello. I just want to say that I agree with this, but it's how you implement it that I'm concerned about. As you know, accountants and the financial audit business is mostly dominated by Asian. I'm not a racist. I'm just telling you the truth. So I would like you to please make sure that these people are not related with people that are working for the school district, and therefore that there are conflict of interest. I would like to know who is going to be hiring these people. If we're auditing essentially Mr. Medici, then Mr. Medici shouldn't be doing the hiring. Who will be doing the hiring of these auditors is my reminder to you to please make sure that there's no conflict of interest. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion and let someone?
Move to approve the audit.
I'll second.
Audit report.
The motion was made by Board Member Hurd and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark?
Aye.
Board Member Bratt?
Aye.
Board Member Hurd?
Aye.
Board Member Mintz?
Aye.
Board Member Ordway?
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, then 10.3, recommendation for one-time educational program. And I think we're, yeah. So, Mr. Medici, continue.
Thank you, President Ordway. Thank you, Logan, for projecting the presentation tonight. There are approximately 25 slides that we will walk through and present information and then take any questions, certainly from the board. Slide 2 outlines very specifically the previous generations of both federal and California dollars we have received to address the impact of COVID-19. Rounds 1 and 2 of federal dollars were totaled approximately $2 million. And the previous generation of California's big contribution called learning loss mitigation dollars totaled just under 12 million. We're certainly deploying every bit of these funds, starting in slide 3, in 3 primary categories. We've heavily invested certainly in people and safety since last March. This list is not is a comprehensive list by category, but doesn't add up exactly to the 3.3 million because there are some small trickles of similar safety categories here. But to point out a few, for instance, we purchased air units that are designed to complement our HVAC unit and specifically deployed in SDC classrooms where there are unmasked students. So they complement the MERV 13 filters that we have in our big HVAC units. The specific to MERV 13, and just for clarification, when the district committed to purchasing MERV 13 filters kind of way ahead of the curve, We committed in the 1920 school year, where at that time there was only about $400,000 of all the round one, basically, of federal dollars worth. So we purchased this year's round of MERV 13 filters specifically with maintenance and operations dollars, not on this list, but not a maintenance and operations budget is not designed to sustain the level of investment required for MERV 13, which is approximately $500,000 more per year than the cost we invest in traditional filters. So about 3.3 million total in people and safety. Slide 4 is our major investments in technology. Obviously, virtual learning requires significant technological capabilities. So from a hardware perspective, we've invested heavily in Chromebooks and iPads to complement the heavy investments made to date by our foundations and PTAs and even the board on previous generations of hardware. We've also very specifically invested in software and online cloud-based tools that allow for all sorts of really cool things to happen in a virtual environment. For clarification, and there's some examples of software listed here, both FastBridge and Lexia, for purposes of the 2021 school year, again, were committed to prior to these COVID dollars for 2021. So were funded by different general fund sources this year. Slide 5 were kind of the remaining of investments, the primary two of which were special education staffing to support a lot of the virtual and at-home needs, as well as social distancing related furniture removal and storage. So the total investments across these categories, which we'll cover in a bit, is about 16 million to date. Prior to kind of moving to the next generation of dollars, we wanted to remind everyone that that many factors have been considered, and Logan, slide 6, please, thank you, related to these COVID relief dollars. Certainly, they are the investments to date have come through board guidance and diligence and oversight, so we thank you for that. We fully recognize that these dollars are one-time dollars, and at least some, if not most or all of how we've invested them really kind of directly relates to ongoing needs and continuing investments we'd like to make. And because of that, we need to continue to work to find ongoing ways, ongoing funding to fund continued investments. Slide 7, and thank you, Logan, kind of talks of some of the overlying considerations that we want to take every opportunity to remind everyone of. Our biggest source of funding at the Sacramento level directly relates to our enrollment. And as previously discussed, actually for many years, we continue to be in a multi-year decline for enrollment purposes. The downward trend is expected to continue. There is in item 10.4 moved from the consent agenda. There's deeper discussion about declining enrollment and our kind of expected return to kind of minus 275 trend. That said, this exact time today, 1,400 less students did here. Slide 8 just kind of summarizes the fact that when we have fewer students, that necessarily means fewer dollars from Sacramento. Sacramento did a really great thing as part of the COVID spending this year, which is they're holding all districts, San Ramon and the other 1,000 districts in the state, harmless for purposes of declining enrollment through next year. So the enrollment numbers that we had, the attendance numbers we had for the 2019-20 school year last year, are how we're being funded by Sacramento for this year and next year. So that's extremely important for us. But what it also means is, notwithstanding any additional changes or hold harmless years that Sacramento provides, this August, so 4 to 5 months from now, this August enrollment will be very important for how the school ended in the 22-23 school year. And in particular, how many of the 1,400 students we don't have now will be returning is a very important. So overall, these first two rounds, three rounds of two sets of federal and one set of state dollars totaled 14.2 million. Because we knew that more dollars were coming, we've continued to invest. Total to date are approximately 16.2 million. The additional one-time dollars, and Logan, this is in slide 10, thanks. And slide 11, the upcoming rounds of both federal and state dollars, round 3 of federal dollars we're still waiting final verification of the dollar amount, but it's approximately 3.4 million. And then the next round of California funding called In-Person Instruction and Expanded Learning is just over $28 million. So starting on slide 12, we're recommending, based on investments to date and then projected funding levels, we're recommending a $30 million investment over the next 2 fiscal years to invest these dollars in our students. And so, so looking forward, these dollars are going to absolutely be used for very thoughtful programs and services for our students. And we realize that as we make these investments and recommend these investments, we have to keep our eye on sustainability, living within our means in the long run. Slide 14, the practical reality of how we have been allocated these dollars are very specifically based on demographic information, and very specifically 4 categories: foster youth, socioeconomically disadvantaged, homeless youth, and English language learners. On a relative basis, San Ramon has less of these students proportionally than some of our neighboring districts around us. So that directly means that we get less dollars than districts that may be our same size. We're getting $30 additional million, which is very welcome, certainly. Other districts, in an order of magnitude way, other districts of our size, around 30,000 students, could be getting double, triple, or even multiple times more, hundreds of dollars compared to the allocation we receive. And we know they need it, so that certainly they appreciate it as well. We also intend to make all of these recommendations tonight align with the upcoming strategic plan or the continuing strategic plan conversations, that overall staff and stability, which these COVID dollars near term provide, but in the medium and long term, they are one-time dollars. So we are unable to fund these services by one-time sources. So again, we'll continue to do everything we can to identify ongoing sources. Slide 16, potential solutions. Thanks, Logan. Certainly additional support at the state level and continuing advocacy so that our students and all students in California can receive the revenues to fund the programs that they deserve. So slide 17, in terms of what we can absolutely control, we absolutely will work with our partners to continue to identify solutions. We understand and accept the budget realities that we face. We continue to think creatively and collaboratively to find resources, and we absolutely continue to keep focused on our students. So the following slides, starting on 18 and specifically 19 going forward, recommend 6 categories for priority consideration of these one-time dollars. And starting with slide 19, I'm going to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent Cuarto to introduce multi-tiered system of support.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. Good evening, trustees. The first priority that I want to talk about this evening is really a multi-system, tiered system of support, which encompasses us hiring 26 teachers that would work across the district in an effort to support our staff in creating a systematic system of interventions so our students can achieve grade level standards. Up here, you'll see a few things listed that our MTSS liaison would work to support our teachers with across the system. We want to continue to build capacity in staff to strengthen our site-based learning supports. We've done an excellent job with executing Tier 1 supports, which is our first kind of classroom level supports for our students. And we'd like to continue to build a systematic approach in Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports across all 35 schools. We would like these MTSS liaisons to support all school sites in consistent professional development that is systematic and equitable across all sites. We want to support and monitor student progress through data, FastBridge, and some of the tech tools that we've purchased over the course of the last year. And we'd like to organize the use of student support time more systematically, both before and after school, which is something that we've yet to do in this district. Second, we'd like to have our MTSS liaisons support the implementation of our strategic plan. We really believe that these 26 individuals will help us systematically implement equitable learning and intervention for all students across our schools.
So as Tammy Castelluccio pretty eloquently discussed earlier during President's comments, the legislation that drives the Expanded Learning Opportunity Grant dollars is State Senate Bill and Assembly Bill 86. And indeed, 10% of the monies that are allocated to the school district must be invested in paraprofessional support. In this district, we're estimating that to be in the neighborhood of between $2.8 million and $3 million. Paraprofessionals may provide supplemental instruction and support for all students across the system, but the legislation requires that it be prioritized for English language learners and students with disabilities. The funds may be used to rehire laid-off paraprofessionals, and as we mentioned earlier, some of the individuals whose positions were included on Resolution 67 that you approved earlier this evening. The funds can also be used to increase the hours of part-time paraprofessionals. So perhaps a 4-hour per day paraprofessional becomes a 6 or an 8-hour per day paraprofessional. And it can be used to hire new paraprofessionals to provide instructional support, supplemental support services above and beyond those which we already provide as part of the program that we provide. Some of the possibilities that we have considered, obviously, we've mentioned in reference to tonight, rescissions of paraprofessional positions that were included on the resolution that are that have been funded through external or site fundraising efforts being reduced for 21-22 can actually be now it's important we put specific assignments TBD there, and I want you to understand that oftentimes the positions that are funded through donated dollars are oftentimes viewed as positions that are attached to the specific school. That's not necessarily the case. So if funds are used to restore individuals whose positions are being eliminated or reduced on that resolution, while those positions could be restored in whole or in part through the use of SB AB 86 dollars, those individuals may actually be recalled and be placed in a different assignment than they've had this year for the 21-22 school year. Okay. And as we also heard many comments about this evening during the public comment portion of the agenda, there are a lot of paraprofessional positions, classroom paraprofessionals and instructional assistants who have been over the years providing support for arts instruction in our schools, particularly at the elementary level, that have been eliminated over the last couple of years, and most recently in pretty large numbers at the end of last year when we brought forward a really significant reduction in classified services. So those funds can be used to restore or even restore and augment the hours that were previously attached to the individuals who worked in those jobs to provide and support arts instruction moving forward. So just a couple of ideas.
Good evening, trustees. The third category for your consideration is on slide 21, and it has to do with class size and staffing ratios. The latest CDPH guidance, California Department of Public Health, requires that students are spaced no less than 3 feet apart from one another. That's current guidance and will continue into next school year into the fall. Also, they suggest that stable groups should be established to minimize student mixing and assist with contact tracing should there be a positive case of COVID-19 in our schools. So the two pieces of class size and staffing ratio that we are putting forward for your consideration is to adjust the staffing ratio in grades 4 and 5, our contractually agreed upon 29:1 down to 26:1. This would have the effect of providing fewer students per classroom and allow the students to be spaced out more appropriately to meet the CDPH guidance. The second item would affect and help our secondary schools by providing what we're calling a staffing reserve. This would provide additional staffing to create stable groups or houses. This would allow students to move between their elective classes and their required classes at the secondary level. That would be for students in grades 6 through 12, with as many of the same peers as possible. Again, preventing the mixing and keeping stable groups for students that are used to moving around a school all day long and having between 5, 6, or 7 class periods with different students.
All right, next up, the next priority we would like you to consider is summer school and the consideration of continuing to school. In previous years, we've covered the cost of summer school via donations and subsidized by the general fund. We have expanded summer school this year in addition to asking our teachers to let us know the children that they'd like to invite to summer school. We've also opened it up to parent requests as well, which is something we've never done before for intervention. So we'd like to continue with summer school being offered in years to come. The next priority we would like the board to consider is curriculum and technology. On the slide, you'll see there are several adoptions we would like to proceed with. The middle school science adoption of Inspire Science, being able to purchase that and implement that for next year, excuse me. We would like to move forward with our elementary phonics pilot and our pilot for social studies curriculum in our elementary schools. We would like to move forward with the purchase of our Japanese curriculum at Monte Vista High School. We currently have one teacher who teaches less than 5 sections, but multiple levels within multiple class periods. And we would also like to move forward with evaluating and examining the technology tools that we've used this school year and seeing which school technology tools we'd like to proceed with for next year. Some examples of that on the slide are FastBridge, Lexia, and IXL Math.
Finally, 24 specifically outlines the continued health and safety investments we'd like to make. Certainly, continued personal protective equipment for students and staff, as well as the enhanced HVAC capabilities, very specifically the MERV 13 filters, and also continued enhanced custodial and cleaning chemical capabilities. Finally, there may be some social distance relating furniture investments depending on continued guidance from the Contra Costa County and Sacramento. That guidance may also include some specific requirements around specific and targeted COVID testing, which again, we believe that this category is covered. So, Dr. Malloy, I believe you have some closing thoughts.
And I'll just close with, I think, what I'd like to frame is a couple of very important points. We've heard it tonight, we've heard it before, and I think we all agree that our students deserve exceptional programs. Programs that support their learning, programs that support their well-being. We understand that this year has been challenging for everyone because of this pandemic. And you heard how we've spent dollars we've already received. And as we return to school full-time for the most part, still offering the virtual academy for those who need it, we know we must invest in our students and our staff as we think about supporting student learning and social emotional well-being. And this presentation tonight outlines those areas. You've also heard tonight about some of our other challenges, both in this presentation and previously. We need additional revenue to support our students. We know that. And we also heard about the of equitable. Tonight we spoke about the arts. There are other examples that we also consider, and I know our board is very committed to that. We discussed one-time funding this year. That will certainly assist us. But without continuous funding, some of these programs that we're talking about that we believe are necessary would be challenged going forward. We talked about enrollment in terms of our revenue. We know this year has had a challenging impact on our enrollment. We don't know fully what will emerge in terms of our enrollment in August. We will watch closely because we understand that, again, is something we need to pay attention to. There's no question we have library staff who do important work for our students each and every day. We have engaged families who support our students in programs and affiliates to our Ed Fund who work tirelessly for this cause. We have students who have spoken tonight about the program want and need. We've heard from them. And what I wish to end is, we are in full agreement. No one is arguing with anything that's being shared. But we need to put forward the truth. Without additional revenues, with the issue of how we're funded, not next year, but the year after, relationship to enrollment, and how one-time dollars may or may not be sustained. There has been some history where, due to political advocacy and such, there is opportunity. But what I think, because I love always to end in an optimistic way, our strategic directions, when you approve those in June, will ground us in transformational ways. We will engage our entire community, all of our stakeholders, to really come together, because this has been a rough year, around what I believe we all agree in terms of what our students need. And I do trust we can do that creatively. So more to come on that. But for tonight, we do need your approval regarding the directions that you see. We obviously are here to answer any questions regarding anything that we're not clear about. Thank you for your time. And even though this is a presentation about a very focused topic, our team wanted to take this opportunity to pull together that which in the 9 months I've been here, we've talked about in different ways through various reports. And what our attempt here tonight is to pull all of this important information together, communicate it as clearly as we can, invite our entire community to join us in this work, because the work ahead is very important and challenging. And I think, as I said, together we can do anything as long as that is the focus of our work ahead. So, President Ordway, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Malloy. Board members, any questions? Yes, Laura.
So as we look at this plan through the lens of our strategic planning, I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about how the use of this additional funds can help to support social and emotional well-being. So specifically counselors, that transition back into quote unquote normal. How will be funds for those aspects?
So I'll start, and then maybe Superintendent Huardo, you can after. Things that our team talked about, we collaborated with our union colleagues, we've collaborated with other staff and other stakeholders, is that though we need some programming, you saw it on the slides, human resources, our staff is what makes the biggest difference. That's what makes this challenging, because funding staff in one-time dollars is something that is a bit of a vulnerability. But in specific terms, the personnel related to the multi-tiered support and the personnel related to elementary and counseling and the counseling ratios is what I think would answer your question most explicitly. So I'll turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent for the specifics.
Absolutely. And so we're looking at both of those right now. We're currently looking to see support with our elementary school counselors, in addition to the 26 FT that would support us in a multi-tiered system of support. Layers of that would come in 3 pieces: academic, social, emotional, and behavioral when I talk about the 3 tiers. So really those liaisons would be creating systems of support, not only in the areas of reading and math, but also within the layers of SEL and behavioral support. So thank you for allowing me to clarify that.
So with those, the 26 working across the district, will there be assigned at each elementary school a person, or are these TOSAs?
Right. So the way that we are planning on doing it is trying, and in the elementary schools, we're looking at having 5 to 6 FTE that are spread amongst a feeder. So maybe there might be 1 or 2 liaisons that support a feeder pattern, elementary, middle, and high, so that they're working together not only within that feeder pattern, but also they'd be supporting multiple schools at the elementary school level and at the middle and high school. They would definitely have a few.
And will there specifically be the certified counselors, or will they be, more of a type of certified who works in counseling but also works?
Right. So I can tell. No, that's okay. So the MTSS would be teachers who are credentialed teachers, and then elementary counselors. I'll turn this over to Keith Rajensky with the specifics. Do have a different, I believe, credentialing than the certificated teachers for the MTSS model.
Well, and my question isn't so much specifically what the credentialing is, but that we are including a variety of. So we have counselor specific people that are working in counseling.
Yes.
And I'll add that we are ensuring that all of our professional learning opportunities, we are embedding this important work. And also when we think about the beginning of the school year, we think about how we re-enter differently, support our teachers and our staff members and our kids to return to school, since, as we've said, some have not been there when we get just for over a year.
Any other questions? Do we have any idea, when we look at the plan as a whole, what services or personnel that we're incorporating in this plan now that are specifically due to COVID and transition into the new school year from the pandemic? How much of that is do we want to retain going forward? Are we looking to retain everything that we see in this plan? Or would some of it would fall away because we've gotten through the pandemic and now we have a normal school in 21, 22, and do without some of these services?
So I'll start, and then maybe other members of the team can pop in. I think the one thing that we're paying very close attention to is what the requirements are in relationship to safety. We will always prioritize safety, but we're not wishing to spend dollars that aren't required if the requirements do change. They have been shifting over time. We've been able to use dollars to do some of the things that we had wanted to in terms of ensuring our students had access to more technology and our classrooms had more access to what is required. The good news is we are in a pretty good spot because of the dollars that have been spent, and you'll be hearing more about kind of our next steps there. But the point of the comments I made at the end is that the other things we are proposing aren't necessarily one-time things in our minds, meaning our staff's mind, and then through all the collaboration that we've done. We have to be realistic though, because if we don't state clearly that if dollars don't come, we can't sustain what we're talking about. But in answer to your question, Trustee Clark, there isn't anything else that I could say to you should come off that list 3 years from now, because it really is aligned with our emerging strategic direction. It's aligned with human resources, which make the biggest difference. And so that is kind of our thinking at this point. But maybe if I haven't captured your question, we want to probe a little bit more, then a member of the team can be a bit more specific.
I think you answered basically that everything that's on there you'd want to do all that moving forward. So we have to try to figure out a way to do it.
That's the reason why I tried to summarize the importance of figuring out revenue challenges so that we could attain that standard and somehow figure out how to continue that standard of program and.
Ken?
Yeah, just one quick question. In terms of how we, based upon our direction tonight, in building the budget for the 21-22 school year, do we either have, I don't believe we have these funds yet, the $30 million. Do we have an estimate of when those funds are going to come to us and the guarantee about these funds and contingencies for not getting these funds?
Thank you, Trustee Mintz. We have not received in our checking account these funds yet, but we have received substantial assurance, and I believe 100% assurance that they are on the way. So for adopted budget purposes, we are planning on zooming through some resource codes, some checking account codes that Sacramento has provided, that these dollars will be deposited. And so I believe that the board, hearing these recommendations tonight, I think can rely on the fact that both Sacramento and the federal government are committed to these $30 million.
Elaborate. Shelley's question. Some of the items you presented would be things like the curriculum. Do that again. Future curriculum. Parsing the things in the presentation. Some of them were clearly.
Yes and no. I'll start with a high-level piece. I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent. I think, and our board has always done this because you used to have a reserve, if you will, to do this. A schedule of curriculum refreshing that we stick to so that we don't fall behind and then, in essence, have an additional challenging circumstance is what we want to avoid. So even though we're using one-time dollars for this particular curriculum resource, we know that when we look at the plan, there are many others to come in the appropriate time frame. Do you?
Sure, absolutely. So to answer your question, Trustee Hurd, yes, there's a couple things. So the MTSS model, to speak to that, our goal is to train for 2 years, transfer leadership to the building leaders, build capacity amongst existing teachers, and eventually wean off the liaison. So that's kind of that priority. The second priority, summer school, I would say is something that would be ongoing because we do see a need for summer school. We see a need for kids to be able to be supported both in intervention and remediation. So that priority I see as a little bit more ongoing in nature. With regard to the curriculum and tech tools, a couple pieces to that, as Dr. Malloy kind of alluded to. Those adoptions will move forward, but there are adoptions that will follow within our 3-year adoption cycle that we still have coming up. So there's also auxiliary materials that we have to repurchase each year that are smaller amounts, but definitely that there's more curriculum to be purchased. And then the tech tool piece, that would be an ongoing cost. And I think we would continue to evaluate which tools are of value to teachers. And that's what we're currently doing right now in a survey.
Those are usually set up as subscriptions.
Yes.
What about related to some staffing, so like the 4th, 5th, accommodating spacing, staffing?
So we're getting in probably a little bit to the next board meeting, but I'll make this statement. Through the stakeholder engagement process, we asked for those transformational commitment ideas. We were open to whatever feedback we received and are receiving for days. And a significant strategy that's probably come up continuously, the whole issue of our class size. And yet we understand that that's important. We also understand, again, the revenue challenges. So we have to live within our means. Already discussed that in previous board meetings, and obviously we know the rules to that. But that could be a continuous cost if there was a way to fund that which is clearly a major ask in our community, one that we may not be able to run past this one-time funding. I go back to my comments. unless we have other revenue sources.
We also have existing challenge, how we fund the items that we called the bridge funding. If I remember correctly, it was not quite $10 million over 9.2 or something like that. So that's roughly $3 per year. It has to be put into this mix of this hole we have to fill one time.
And Greg Medici has really helped me understand. So I'm going to make a comment that the structural deficit, where we're basically living beyond our means, unless there is a solid funding source. For a period of time, we all know we can bring down reserves to a certain amount that must remain at a certain level, and we are doing that. But no one's arguing with the service that is needed, the staffing that it pays for, and the ways in which our students are assisted is something that is agreed to, at least by me and our team. Certainly, those who are in our schools providing this service are doing amazing work, and we know that that's important. But again, this is where we have some pretty challenging realities unless the revenue issue changes.
So if I can just follow up on that, in terms of that question of the one-time dollars, but the ongoing nature of a number of these issues, I'm just wondering, it's really not a question, I guess, but once we see the budget, the way that we handle multi-year projections, will include these items, or they fall under our normal budget items without time dollars, or how a number of these things would be adjusted over time because we recognize we may not have that funding that you just spoke to.
An excellent question, Trustee Mintz. We are in the June adopted budget for 21-22. We will be specifically bringing forward $30 million worth of revenues and $30 million worth of expenses to be expensed across next fiscal year and 22-23. But these 30 million of expenses and revenues will not be continued on an ongoing basis. As Dr. Malloy mentioned, the existing ongoing nature of both our revenue and expenses have two very important inputs, one of which, revenue side and enrollment side, I learn a lot more about between August and November, and then so next December will be the first time we get a really good picture of kind of the ongoing nature on the revenue side. And on the expense side, from an ongoing perspective, as previously discussed in multiple multiple year meetings, we have been structural basis kind of working through and around a structural deficit expense side since at least the 18-19 school year, which was part of the bridge conversation that Trustee Hurd mentioned. So the adopted budget, to your core question, will include these expenses on a one-time basis, revenue expense. The structural core of the budget will be the foundation of the multi-year project.
Okay, any other questions?
The only comment I would make, alluded to it was on the presentation, is it's going to be critically important for us to involve our community, our parent community, our ed funds, our technology funds, because I think if we can give them a vision of what we're trying to create and the reasons for it, that we can garner some support from them around creating this for our students. And some of these issues are ones that the community has been talking about, like class size reduction, social emotional support, and all of those kinds of things that they want students, the arts, teachers, and things like that. Having been on an ed fund president and been a vice president of a technology fund, I know that parents who are on those want to do everything they can to try to create resources for all of our students. So I think we kind of got, obviously with this year being in the pandemic, everything went upside down. We got derailed on a lot of this, but I know they want to help as much as they can. And for example, the technology fund at this was asking, inquiring to me about, well, now the district has bought all the Chromebooks and things like that. What is our value? What are we bringing? Do we still need to exist? So we need to give them, a new vision for what technology funds and ed funds, what their function is going forward with the vision that we have for the district.
Thank you for that, Trustee Clark. And I think that the next step is, obviously, we will always follow appropriate process and we will fulfill all requirements for a balanced budget. That will be done properly. We will hold out as appropriate what we know we need and what it would cost to fund it. Then we would look at the equitable allocation, equitable access piece, figure out where that situation lies, and then figuring out how to mobilize our community, maybe through some advocacy, maybe with our cities and affiliates and such, as well as our broader community. I think it's a multi-pronged process that we will be focusing on over the next while, because we've been given some space next year in terms of the one-time dollars, as well as how we're being funded by previous attendance numbers, EDA. But we know that the time, though it feels a little longer right now, is short. And that's why the work has to happen as you just said. And we'll be looking forward to your insight and direction on that, as well as support for an engagement strategy that is already happening, by the way, happening all over our community. And certainly our union colleagues are very much involved in this, as entire staff. And it all came together in a really optimal way, because I have access to the data that's coming in through the stakeholder engagement process, and it's all aligning. Now we just have to figure out how to put aside anything that may have caused us division in this crazy, challenging year and focus. So that's our next step. We need your leadership, all of that.
Thank you. We do have a public comment on this item. Helen?
Hello, I want to speak for the students. On this issue, the politicians showed up. The union showed up. However, the students who are not able to speak English didn't show up. I want to show up for them because I was one of them. I came to this country, I couldn't speak English. However, I feel that if I was a student today, I don't know if I can really benefit from this SBAB 86 10% allocated funds that are basically imposing on you decision makers to make me, because these money are given without any data. These are blind money that tells you you must help people like me. What if I have improved? Maybe a few years ago, I was an English learner, but I am no longer. However, I still need areas of support in, say, art or technology or social studies. Then are these paraprofessionals able to help me? Or are they just language based? What are these politicians trying to accomplish? They're not for me. They're for their future votes. They want to pretend like they're helping me, but they're not. They want to make me a statistic of failure forever, because when I go away, people won't vote for them. They won't have these money to give to you and look good. So therefore, I urge you to please appeal to our politicians, Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Kahn, our Senator Steve Glazer. They have to help us by making these poor legislations to go away and to allocate money according to our needs. So we are educating for success and not educating for forever failures. Thank you.
Thank you. I do agree with that. I have a feeling that because we do need right ongoing revenue at some point, given a reprieve next year, that yeah, there'll probably be some advocacy, future advocacy going on in our, I think, state level too. So anyway, with that, any more discussion?
I just wanted to speak to that too, just to really start to think about that baseline per pupil funding, because that's just not enough. And so as we move forward and as we see what this extra money can do for our district, just, and how valuable that is just to raise that baseline for pupil funding. So to advocate for that, I think will have a high value.
Okay. But I do want to thank the district staff on this. I guess on this proposal that you put forth to us. It's very actually comprehensive, and you looked at all the different actual areas. First of all, to help our students with intervention, with anything they need to prepare for the fall classes. And then, of course, in the fall, looking at how we can start our next semester, our next school year, best way possible with regards to safety, like physical safety, emotional, and of course curriculum too. And yeah, with the MTSS again, making sure that everyone, and then really even with the classified personnel, I think that sometimes when we don't have enough and we don't have enough funds, and we really rely on the generosity of our community, and they've been great in donations. Sometimes, however, that there's there's not as much equity, right, across the different our school districts. And I think that if we can use our these one-time funds to replace maybe some of the needs, but across district and not just in again dependent on who is donating or where it's being donated. I think it goes a long way. So thank you.
And I want to add to that too. I want to thank the Dr. Malloy and his staff. I think that in this plan, it feels like you are taking the strategic plan that we've talked about and looking at how we can use these funds through those three lenses, and that's I think that's something that will help to build the direction that we're looking to go in with the strategic plan by actually using the resources that we're given to be able to push that plan forward in a way that hopefully will be sustainable with more sustainable funding. But so I just want to say kudos and thank you for really looking at this through that lens.
If no more comments for the motion to approve recommendation of these one-time education.
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Bratt. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks. And then we are now, okay, there is now a 10.4. We are pulling from the consideration of acceptance of projected declining enrollment assumption, our action item.
Logan, better? Yeah, better now?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Apologize. I can repeat. So this agenda item specifically has to do with a conversation that we've had for a few years, but very specifically in January when we brought this year's demographic study, as well as March when we brought the second interim report based on a similar thesis that the multi-year kind of pattern of decline had established itself around approximately 275 students. This year's very specific decline of 1,400 students, staff believes is very much impacted, has been very much impacted by COVID-19. We're bringing forward this recommendation for purposes of the June adopted to return to the minus 275 thesis, and then when we know more in August and September and October how many students we actually have, how many students have actually returned from the minus 1,400, then starting in December for the first time at the first interim presentation of next fiscal year, we would then make a new recommendation about the multi-year enrollment trend, and specifically the anticipated declining enrollment trend.
Okay, thank you. And we have some time because next school year we have been given a reprieve of using the 2019 ADA
Correct.
number. Thank you. Helen, yes, for the public comment on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Medici, I pulled this item out because I did read, thanks to Ms. Fisher for teaching me how to read the addendum last time. So I did read your addendum. And after I read it, I still have questions because I don't know how you came up with these numbers. You had subtracted 825 students, or actually you added 825 students to the next year's enrollment. So the original deficit, if you will, was over 1,000. And yet you're just reporting a deficit of 275. It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make logical sense to me. I would like to question, how did you derive your numbers? And just to keep you honest, I'm wondering if you know where these numbers fall into. For example, are they mostly in elementary schools? Are they mostly in middle school? Are they mostly in high school? And just so you know, this is not about you, but because we have filthy politicians in California, I hate to have them use your numbers and then pat us with whatever that's going on in our southern border, and therefore it will be taking away from our district students. Then that will be definitely an equity issue. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ken?
Just one quick point. So I agree with the assumption of using 275 going forward. One question I would have, however, is as we're once again building multi-year projections, anything that we're putting into the budget this year that requires ongoing, especially any new ongoing expenses, could be dramatically changed based upon what we see at that first interim.
That is correct.
And so that's where, we referring to, some kind of cliff that got kicked down the road because of the state moving out another year on ADA. But once we have that better situation, it's not really until then that we know how consistent our ongoing expense situation might be.
That's exactly correct.
Great. If no more question or discussion, can I have a motion?
I'd like to give Medici an opportunity to address the.
Oh,
I
yes,
think
of course.
it's important that the math.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trustee Hurd. So as discussed, both at second interim and numerous occasions, the minus 1,400 students right now that we have, exactly right now, if instead this year would have held to the assumption of the minus 275, then the mathematic bridge to this 800 level number, 825, is 1,400 minus the 275 that we anticipated wouldn't have shown up, COVID or otherwise, is 1125, and then 1125 minus an additional 275 that were projected to not show up next August would mean that 850 students of the current 1,400 may be returning between now and August. And typically, based on enrollment trends between now and August, the district enrolls hundreds of students, and approaching 700 to 800 to 850 students is not out of the realm of possibility in recent years of the pattern of how many students that we don't know about in May arrive by August. So 1,400 minus two sets of 275 is the 850 positive number that's assumed for next year. But when we look at it in a larger trend across multiple years, it is simply returning to the minus 275 across multiple.
Okay.
Exactly.
I had looked at it the other way, where 3 years of got us to 825. I guess I did it the reverse
And true,
way.
the numbers
but
are in the ballpark of each other, but from different directions.
Okay. Then can I have a motion, please?
I move acceptance of the projected declining enrollment.
I'll second that.
Motion was made by Board Member Mintz and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz.
Aye.
Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. We're moving into something different once a year. I believe we do this. I'm going to recess the meeting of the Board of Education, and I'm going to convene meeting of the San Ramon Valley Unified School District Joint Powers Financing Authority. A comment or report?
Thank you, President Ordway. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Yes, this is a multi-year kind of structure that originates back to the solar panel investments from the early 2010s to circa 2012, and is required as part of the district's qualified school construction bonds, Q-SCIBs, and CREBs, which are apologize at this exact second. I apologize for it. The acronym of CREBs is escaping me, other than to say that it's directly related to a financial structure that subsidizes interest so that we can receive interest subsidies from both the federal government and California as we pay back our solar panels, of which we still have approximately $25 million of investment to pay back over the next approximately 13 years.
Thank you. And let's see, and it's approval of consent agenda, consent items, which I guess this item is under. Consent items are considered routine in nature and are approved by combining them into a single vote. A member of the board or a member may request that a consent item be removed from the consent agenda to be considered and voted on separately. So is there a request to remove any items from consent? Okay, then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. I'll second. Approve the consent agenda. I second.
The motion was made by Board Member Clark and seconded by Board Member Hurd. Call out vote. Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Bratt.
Aye.
Board Member Hurd.
Aye.
Board Member Mintz. Board Member Ordway.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. I'm gaveling out of the SRVUSD Joint Powers Financing Authority, and now I'm going to return us to our SRVUSD Board of Education meeting. Would moving on to administrative matters. So board reports. Board Member Clark, do you have any work?
Well, I virtually attended Advocacy Day this week, and it was really informative, and I especially enjoyed the superintendent's panel, of which Dr. Malloy was a part. And it was just interesting to hear all the different perspectives from the different superintendents and how, while our districts are varied and different, we're just, a lot of us are dealing with a lot of the same issues. And it was just nice to hear the perspectives of other superintendents in other areas and their perspectives. So, and also on the legislative matters that are before the California legislature. So I always, Advocacy Day is just such a valuable service that the PTA provides, and I appreciate it so much. I did as a parent, and I certainly appreciate it even more now as a board member.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the teachers. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, and a great week to celebrate teachers. So thank you. And then also, President Ordway, you and I were able to join in on the student advisory stakeholder group earlier this week, it was wonderful to see the students speaking about their experiences and their thoughts on how to transition again back to normal. Very enlightening and inspiring to see how empowered they were in speaking up. And then I also just wanted to thank everyone who took part in providing the SAT last week and the PSAT week the week before for our sophomores and juniors. You know, that was a lot of organizing, I know there were volunteers, there was staff involved, teachers involved. So thank you for providing that for our sophomores and juniors.
Rachel?
I'd like to echo what Shelley said about advocacy. Add on that I thought it was one of the best ones. Been on that committee for many years and struggle in November with how do you have relevant March or April, and they did such a fantastic job making it relevant to the current time, but topics missed it. The each of the sessions was recorded and available on the council's YouTube channel. I highly recommend doing each on this. Coming up, I have the CSBA district assembly, which happens twice a year. That's all day Saturday, and representing there will be approving the legislative platform that CSBA has, adopts each year to look at how CSBA supports future. There was one more thing. Oh, I also want to really shout out to Deanna Sapia and Deb Pettish. Fantastic job there, leading the curriculum. But when we're reviewing the different possibilities, rubric and together, really excited to hear what's next tomorrow at a meeting, which programs we're going to pilot. But they've really done a job with bringing us options.
I also had the opportunity to attend portions of the PTA Advocacy Day. I want to thank everyone involved in putting that on. In particular, I do out to both Rachel and to Susanna, because both of them work quite a bit behind the scenes on PTA activities, representing the board and participating in putting that event together. Since our last meeting, I've also had opportunity to participate in our Danville Seminole Valley liaison meeting with Shelley as well as with John, as well as facilities oversight, and we have another meeting coming up next Wednesday there. And this past week, we've also had a Street Smarts Committee meeting looking at what the Street Smarts programs will look like and trying to hopefully move some of those back into in person. They have been doing them, but we really do want to, particularly in early fall, see what we can do to make sure that we prepared our youngest students for being smart about showing up for school, you know, biking and walking and those type of things. When you think about the number of our students who, as mentioned earlier, haven't been attending campuses for more than a year, we want to make sure that particularly those younger ones really are cognizant of safety on the street.
Well, listening to, you know, the board report, just realized that I've actually been with you guys pretty frequently, but virtually. Because, yeah, with Advocacy Day, right? Student advisory, one of the FOAC liaison meetings, like, oh, I have seen you pretty regularly this last week. But yeah, no, for me, I'm actually looking forward to, we have some, Dr. Malloy and I have student interviews coming up for our first ever student board member. So I'm looking really forward to, I believe there are 10 students that we're interviewing. So, whoa, I'm busy. So that was my report. So now, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Ordway, and I do beg your patience because I do actually have a report tonight. First of all, I want to clarify one piece, and thank you, Trustee Bratt, for your question, because what we failed to be explicit about is that within the $6 million each year for the multi-tiered support, there is a portion of that, approximately $2.75 million, that is for counseling, whereas the other part is for the educational support and intervention. We failed to explicitly state that, and I want to record be sure that I answered the question. And luckily, the superintendent looked back at the slides, and I felt it was important for me to be that explicit. There are three topics that I'd like to share. The first one is a topic we know about. We heard about it this evening from Ann Katzberg, but I do feel it's important for time at our board meeting, and we will also capture this message in our board highlights about all of our community tomorrow. The recent media attention regarding the racist and homophobic stickers that were found on the Cal High campus last month is an important one from some of our community members and, of course, the media as well. The stickers, which carry claims of racism and homophobia, were deeply offensive and unacceptable. They were found by staff and removed immediately before that next school day. An investigation was conducted. Surveillance footage shows that 2 individuals were involved. However, due to the darkness of the late hour, the clothing that was worn, it was not possible to identify these people. We do apologize that the situation was not promptly communicated to our school community. We've explained that hadn't been a standard across all of our schools because each situation was dealt with in a unique way, but we have changed that. Going forward, in light of this, all issues of discrimination, racism, hate of any kind, 3 things will happen. It will be communicated. Within that communication, it will be clear about how to provide support for those who are most impacted. And it will also outline education and engagement strategies so we can deal very much in that particular community and beyond regarding these very significant issues. And we know that trust comes from that very, very important work. So that is our expectation going forward. Further, because we have at district level opened up this very important step through the workshops that happened in February, through the strategic plan, which is being developed now. It's also allowing us to bring together significant that has already been done in the district, take it to the next level. And some of those ideas, for example, are the handbook that is being finalized right now, responding to discrimination. It will be ready this summer. All of our staff will have the opportunity to be trained in what it means and why it's here and how we proceed. And again, I think what's important is that our commitment to safe, equitable, and inclusive students for all, environments for all staff and students, as well as our families and community, is a priority. And we know that it's not good enough without a plan. That plan needs to not only be implemented, but monitored. Work has been done historically. I'm honoring that and celebrating that, but I think we are taking it to the next level. And in particular, the school will be having a student forum for their own students this Friday, May 7th, 2:30 to 4:30, for the students to talk about how they wish, how they're feeling and what they're needing. Having said that, though, for those students who don't necessarily wish to participate in that type of forum, other supports are being made available. So I wanted to share that with you here. I also need to talk about graduation. Graduation is so very important to our students and to our families. We know that last year that wasn't a possibility in the way in which people expected. And this very long year, many had hoped that a return to normalcy would mean complete, normal, traditional graduation. And that's not possible. I want to state it to you, and I want to share it with our community, and it will be communicated again through the board highlights tomorrow. Each high school will have 2 graduation ceremonies. Is adhering to the public health requirements. There are capacity while we are in orange. There is an expectation that we are still apart, even though students are allowed to be apart. Some are struggling with that. I understand that struggle. That is still a requirement. I promise you that we have every and looked under every stone and tried to figure out how to proceed. But this is the challenge. Could some of our smaller schools possibly make it work if they had fewer tickets for their families? Maybe. Could that work at some of our other schools? No. But that's not the reason why this decision was made. For the year that we've experienced and some of the differing views that exist in our community, some of the raw emotions that emerged throughout, our cabinet decision that by having 2 graduations, by offering 4 tickets for every student, and by continuing with the guiding principle of fulfilling the requirements that public health sets, we've never diverted from, that was the best way forward. We are meeting with student groups who are upset. We are engaging certain families who have reached out to us. We are sharing the level of granular detail we worked through to get to this place. We are also at a point now where people need to plan. And if they are inviting family members to come, they need to know what time. And we need to simply move forward. I wanted you to know that this is being facilitated at school level with our principals who are continuing with their teams to do great work. But I wanted you to hear from me because you're probably receiving emails, and I just need you to know that I get it. It's been yet again another one of those challenging. We have to live within the parameters. We can't do what everyone would like us to do. But the good news is our principals are looking at, with their teams, other ways to ensure that our campus together should we want to be, they leave this year. And before I offer something more positive, once again, these things emerge and they leave us with a decision, and some people might wish a different decision would be made. I want to talk about the last day of school. So nothing's changed about the last day of school because the last day of school has always been a minimum day. And a minimum day on our schedule means it is a remote day. And when we realized through some of our wonderful staff members and family members who said, do we have to have a remote day on the last day after this year we just had? And of course, I not fully understanding the complexity of the San Ramon Valley Unified School District schedule system, which I promise you I'm getting my head around, I thought that was just a very valid question until I brought it to my team. Needless to say, the complexity to change a schedule with all of the other pieces that it's connected to, instructional minutes, what we've already communicated, families who different decisions that day, schools who are using it, whether it's for the 5th graders or for preparation for graduation, it simply made no sense to shift it, even though you may hear from some, as I have, that why can't you just do it? I'm promising you, because I'm new to the community, never having experienced this before, my team got to hear me ask multiple questions about why can't we do this. I'm bringing to you the truth. So I wanted you to know that. We're going to share the rationale with our community tomorrow, but I wanted you to hear it first here. And my very last comment. I'm so grateful that we have been able to honor our lunch heroes, our classified employees this month. The Day of the Teacher, which is coming, the Teacher Appreciation Week, and we expanded it to all certificated staff this week as well. Our principals and assistant principals, it was Saturday, but we honored them. I think we just that. We thank people a lot. But, you know, we haven't been able to have the kind of celebration that usually go along with it. I look forward to that day. We're actually sharing food, for example, as we celebrate, and having the opportunity to greet one another without the kind of, should I shake that person who just won that award's hand? I see that. I'm sure you do as well. I see the changes coming. I see the normalcy happening. But again, I just want to close my report, and forgive me that it's long, thanking our support our students each and every day. And it makes me very grateful to this seat, knowing who is with our kids and who is working in our departments to create things for our kids. Thank you for allowing me to do a little bit of a longer report, but I didn't actually have a lot to say. I thought it would be.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. And thank you for actually addressing all the different items there. I guess we do have a public comment card. Yeah, for
Hello, Superintendent Malloy. Thank you for all you do. I am in shock hearing what you just said because I am in the dark. I had no idea about the homosexual slur that was posted. Definitely, we need to respect everyone because of diversity. However, I also want to say that the way this situation is handled is awfully unfair to our community, and especially the students and the families of that particular high school that were affected, because you yourself even said that you cannot identify who those two people were. What if they were just outsiders from Oakland or Milpitas or somewhere? They don't even belong in our community. Then next thing we know, our community is being penalized. So is it wise of us to always respond to terrorist attack, so to speak, when we don't know who are the perpetrators? Then what authority do we have to go and tell our communities about what a terrorist did? I object to the way that it is handled, and I wish that you had informed everyone so I don't come here and be shocked by this kind of incident that should have gone out to the public in our community, telling us this is happening, and to also give our community a chance to rationalize why is it that we're always being penalized for something we didn't do. Thank you.
okay, and if that, I think if there's no more comments, discussion, questions, I'm going to adjourn our meeting. Thank you.